My name is Udit. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about the Amazon data engineering interview process. At the end of this video, you should have a good understanding of the process itself, what interviewers filter for, and a couple of tips on how to prepare yourself for this interview. As a quick introduction, I'm from Prepfully. We offer anonymous mock interviews with someone who's worked in your target company and role, alongside a host of other interview prep services. So in this context, we've got a lot of Amazon data engineers who've been helping candidates with mocks and advice, and who've helped us put together relevant content, this video being a good example of it. So, on to the Amazon data engineer interview. In a nutshell, there are 3 steps in Amazon's data engineering hiring process. The first is a recruiter phone interview. The second is a phone interview with an Amazon data engineer. And the third and final step is the onsite or virtual onsite loop, which is 5 interviews. Let's talk step 1 first. This is the recruiter interview. It usually happens over phone or online and takes about 20 to 30 minutes. Your resume needs to have passed the filters to be invited for this. In this round, the recruiter is primarily trying to assess your experience as a data engineer, how much of this experience is relevant to Amazon, as well as potentially your high-level cultural fit for the company. So some tips for getting through this round is A, be super familiar with your past work. Make sure to have a project you can talk about from each of your previous roles. 2, organize your thoughts in advance around topics like what your contribution was and the skills you required or demonstrated in accomplishing certain goals. For instance, you might want to have different projects that demonstrate your familiarity with data modeling or with writing really complex SQL queries and so on. Thirdly, keep answers short and crisp because this is meant to be a short discussion. Fourthly, have a clear reason for why you're applying to Amazon, as well as why you think you'd succeed there. And fifth, last but not the least, this round often starts with the old favorite, tell me about yourself. So it's really useful to have a nice short introduction ready to roll with. Next up then is step 2, the data engineering phone interview. This is typically a hybrid interview that covers a lot of ground, but doesn't go too deep into any one topic. We've got several Amazon data engineering hiring managers on Prepfully, and they ask anything from SQL questions, occasionally lead code style, data structures and algorithms, often a couple of leadership principles. They'll also delve a little bit into your past experience and understand what your technical contribution there was, or potentially ask you about your experience on concepts you might be involved in within the Amazon role if hired. So this interview can be really broad, and therefore I've got 3 tips for this phone round. The first is be really succinct because there's just so much ground to cover in this interview. You don't want to let just one topic hijack the entire conversation. 2, be ready with 1 or 2 stories for pretty much each leadership principle, as well as the key message you want to deliver with that story. And thirdly, practice with friends, with colleagues, with fellow candidates, or best of all, with data engineers who are at Amazon. Get feedback on your stories, get used to having questions thrown at you that might not be completely what you were expecting. If you know a data engineer at Amazon, ask them for help. If you don't, reach out to them on LinkedIn and see if someone could help you, or just book a mock with one of the Amazon data engineers on Prepfully and get some practice that way. Good. So now let's assume you've gotten through the phone screen and you're through to the third and final step, which is also the highest effort one, the onsite or the virtual onsite round. There are going to be 4 formal interviews and 1 kind of informal interview, which is like a lunch break in between, and they can happen in pretty much any order. So the 4 formal interviews are firstly technical. In this, there'll be questions which discuss data warehousing, database management, data integration, etc. You'll be asked lots of scenario-based questions for which, for instance, you might need to design a workflow. And in this interview, your interviewer is testing your technical knowledge. The next interview type is the debugging interview, and this is all about assessing your problem-solving skills. You'll be given a problem and you'll have to brainstorm how to diagnose the underlying issue before coming up with a solution to fix it. So in this interview, it's really important to clarify and scope and constantly engage with the interviewer, since you've got to ask questions and get answers from them to lead towards an eventual diagnosis, which you could then propose a solution for. The third then is the data modeling round. In this round, you'll be asked to model the data schema for a specific real-world challenge. You'll delve into the schema itself and you'll go into some pretty deep specifics of the data model, such as what the ERD would look like, which tables would have joins with others, what keys you'd set up and the constraints around them, what the cardinality would be, how you'd establish normalization. This list obviously isn't exhaustive, so you should be prepared to deal with pretty much all aspects of data modeling in this interview. Fourth, you'll have an SQL round. In this, you'll be again given a real world problem and you'll have to write really complex SQL queries on a data set. So be prepared with all the usual SQL concepts, aggregate functions, subqueries, joins, group by having, etc. Finally, the fifth informal round, which is what lunch consists of, you'll basically be having lunch with someone senior, usually team lead level, but sometimes even director level. They're probably going to ask you broad, high-level questions to assess your cultural fit, about your background, about your experiences. But keep in mind that even though this is supposed to be a break, you need to be on guard for the fact that you are being assessed at the end of the day. So right, that's all for this guide then. In a nutshell, there are 3 steps to cracking Amazon's data engineering interview. The recruiter round, all about the basics. The phone interview covers all concepts but in limited depth, and the on-site round, which really digs deep into your data engineering skills. Once you feel ready for some practice, or when you just want a sense check of your preparation level, you can book an anonymous mock interview with an Amazon data engineer on Prepfully. There's a link in the description below. In addition, I've also linked to a bunch of useful resources. There's a written guide which goes into a lot more depth. We've also got a couple of interview questions that have been asked by candidates recently, which they contributed to our website, and a couple of blog posts which delve into specific nuances of this interview. So feel free to check those out. As always, if you have follow-up questions about this interview, please ask in the comments below. And if you like this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks and good luck.
Thanks for watching the video. If you liked it, please subscribe. Our website is prepfully.com. We've got lots of interview questions there. You can also schedule a mock interview with one of our experts. You can find the link in the description below. All the best from us at Prepfully, and we hope you totally rock your interview.